Hey you guys, it's me, Lisa B. And I wanted to do something. I told myself on my platform try to address like topics that are happening in the world, and especially if it's something that relates to me, and express how I feel and get feedback. I contemplated on doing a live, and I was like, well, I'll just, read the comments because I really do have a concern and would love to hear from people. If I knew how to properly do the live to put the clips in that I want to put in here, I would have done it. I would have done a live. But, there was a shooting in Buckhead. It was a 22-year-old, that was shot and killed by a police officer. And the thing that touched me the most was the fact that the mother had already reached out prior to the altercation happening at his previous place of employment.
I let them know my son has mental health issues. Not sure if he used any substances in reference to pills, I don't know.
She already had reached out to get help for him. She called someone. She called the authorities, and help didn't get there in time.
And that yesterday afternoon, they believed he was not in the right state of mind. They called 911 to try to get him to a hospital, but that it took way too long for help to arrive, and their son left the house.
I'm just wondering what was really the delay in help getting there. I would love to know what. Did she just call emergency services? Did she call any of the mental institutions, facilities as such? Because I had an experience before to where I was like, what do I do? My dad, with his illness, his medications, him taking his medications incorrectly had been leading to him having hallucinations. And that was a very, very, very trying moment for me. Because you're like, the first day, you're like, what do I do? You can't take them to the hospital. As a matter of fact, I took my dad to the hospital. And hey, we check vitals, they ran I think that's a MRI when they put him in the machine, and it seemed like put him in that, I think that's what it was called, MRI or CT scan or whatever it was. They put him in that machine, and that almost made him worse. I felt so bad having to let my dad, leave my side, and I couldn't go inside of that room with him because he begged those people. Because what happened was when they did, it seemed like it just made it worse because of being closed up, and he was like, he just can't do it. And I'm begging him, so they had to pull him out and then put him back through there, and because what happened was initially he fell. This is when my dad fell and fractured his neck, so he had to go through for that. So they were just saying it was because of that, it was the trauma, that's why he's having the hallucinations and just a little off-centered. And they sent him home. We went home that night. It was chaos, y'all, I'm gonna tell you. And then the very next day, I wasn't getting sleep, y'all. Let me tell you, I was not getting any sleep because I was so worried. Because it's like he had already woke me up out of my sleep and was like, the police are here. And now I'm like trying to talk to all these police officers that are at my house. And luckily we had paperwork that he had just left the hospital, right? But it was nothing that they could do. So the next day, things were progressing, getting worse. Like, it was constant. I felt like I'm after a child. Like, okay, Dad, sit down. No, that's not happening. Do this, do this. And I struggled with what to do. And what I did was I called one of the centers, I called one of the medical facilities, for things of such. And they were like, hey, well, if you need immediate assistance, because they was like, well, is he saying he's going to harm himself? And I was like, no, but I don't know what to do. Y'all, I could kind of relate to this woman in many ways. And that's what I'm just wondering, where did she call? And then finally I called. They gave the first facility that I called. They say, well, if you need, I said, ma'am, I need someone here. Like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what is going to happen. I don't know what he's capable of, and I don't know how to control this. So that lady was like, well, call this other number. Those people asked me so many questions. And when I tell you, I begged. And let me tell y'all, this was over a span about 2 or 3 hours when I'm telling you that things had been progressing and I did not know what was wrong with my dad. And finally somebody came out and they talked to him. They came. So at this point it's about 5 hours, because after I finally got finished with all the questioning and giving all kind of information, they sent someone to my house from the facility that does house calls. And I don't know if it was because he's an elderly man, but when I tell you, I thank God for those people, because they were able to help my dad get into a hospital that specializes in that. And then come to find out, that's what it was. It was, on top of his illnesses, it was just the medication and taking something incorrectly. And all of that created all of this problem, and he had to get stabilized again. But I know I kind of got off subject, but I wanted y'all to understand that it's a possibility, one, that maybe she didn't call the right number. And they should have told her where she could have called if they didn't see it as an emergency situation. And, or, the fact that she asked and she pleaded with these people to make sure that it's someone well-versed in handling an African-American male in a situation, because she's so concerned.
But I explained to them in great detail my biggest fear when I got on the phone with them. I said, he's an African-American male. Please make sure whoever shows up is trained and knowledgeable. So when they deal with my son, I don't have to worry about my son being killed.
I also have a family member that suffers from mental health. And it seems as though that kind of stuff is not taken seriously. And I know that deep down, because I love him so much, that is my biggest fear as well, that something's going to happen.
Collins ended up going to the Buckhead Fogo de Chão restaurant where he used to work. Someone from the restaurant called 911 that an unruly patron had a gun. Police say they responded, and at one point a security guard tackled Collins. That's when they say Collins pulled out his gun and shot the guard, leading police to shoot Collins, killing him.
He had lashed out at one time, and got into, what do they call it? Like, basically a fight. He beat somebody's ass. But it's like, a lot of times when you have people that suffer from mental health issues, there are certain situations. The fuse is very, very, very short. It's a short fuse, baby. And, and so what happened was he gets locked up. Well, because we are there for, this particular family member. And my dad tried to handle it and was like, he doesn't need to be locked up. He needs to be in a, mental facility. And they're basically like, too bad, so sad. Like, they're like, hey, we know that he's this way because he's not taking his medication. Is there any way that y'all can make sure then while he's locked up for these 30 days that he's back on his meds? And they're like, oh, that's not our responsibility. We can't make him take his medicine. So it's one of those things that where we have the big fear, because he had, now my family member has a record of mental health. He's been to certain institutions, and you know it's recorded with the VA, and it's just one of these things to where nobody's really concerned until it gets to this extreme. And I know that some people can look at this situation with this young fella here and say, well, he did pull out a gun and shoot somebody. Okay. They didn't have to shoot to kill him when the officer shot him, though, either. But also, the fact of the matter that the mother reached out for help.
Nigel's mother tells me she's absolutely devastated that her son lost his life here and that she tried to get him help just hours before this all unfolded at this restaurant.
And I know for a fact that it's not easy. It's not easy when you're trying to get that help. If it's not a life or death situation and somebody ain't already dead or about to die, it's not an emergency. All they do is just give you different numbers and you get to run around and you call and they say, it's nothing we can do, it's nothing we can do. And it's not taken seriously, y'all. And I really, 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 really want to know, like, we have people like that on the loose and someone's trying to help and they're not getting the proper help, and then it ends in a tragedy as such. And that saddens me because I have a family member that deals with this, and I know his heart is so good, and we used to be so close, but I have to keep my distance because I'm no lie, like I'm actually afraid sometimes because I don't know when he's gonna snap, you know, and it's just like I just pray every day, you know. My family members, they just always like, we just hope that nothing ever happens to him because it's almost like their mental condition controls them. They're not in control. And just like this mother said, look, I'm not telling y'all that my son might not be on drugs. I'm telling you that at this moment, though, there's a problem. We need some help. Somebody come quick. But now, we got somebody rushing to the scene because it has ended in tragedy. And my heart goes out to her. Lord knows it do. It really, really does. It really does, because I just don't think mental health conditions are handled properly. And I don't know how to handle them. I'm not in that field. I don't know what could be done. There has been plenty of times that people, you know, I've talked to people about these type of situations, and they've said, well, we can't make them take their medication. And you're right. And we can't keep them institutionalized. But it's like, you just constantly think about the battle that a person might have within them, knowing that they probably constantly battle with the mental versus who they really are. And I'm just lost. I'm no lie, I'm really, really lost, because I just don't know. And it's like, what can we do as a community in these type of situations, where or our family? You know, what do you do? Because the biggest fear is, are they gonna harm themselves or harm someone else? And you just don't want it to end in tragedy when they're not in control. It's their mental capacity. And I don't know how you make a person that has a diagnosed mental condition take their meds. I don't know. You know, it's like my heart goes out to families that are dealing with this. And, you know, y'all, this isn't one of my typically upbeat videos that I usually do, but this was just so personal to me. And my heart goes out to this mother that knew she needed some help. And it was just a little too late. Somebody didn't come fast enough, you know, and it ended in tragedy. I thank God that the security guard that was shot in this situation is okay.
The guard survived and at last check was at the hospital. Coming up.
And I hope that his family and his loved ones understand that it wasn't this 22-year-old boy. It wasn't him who did it. It was his mental state of mind that did this. Y'all, tell somebody that you love them. Today, tell somebody today that you love them, because tomorrow is not promised. Tomorrow's not promised. Y'all, and until next time, my good people.